You are not suffering because life is unclear, but because you refuse to govern your own mind with reason, while time quietly leaves you behind. You keep reacting instead of choosing, judging instead of examining, and delaying the one thing fully under your control, your character in this moment. If you continue like this, nothing outside you will ever be enough to fix what is already within you. Before we go further, subscribe and stay with this series only if you are ready to treat your mind as something you must train daily, not excuse. This is a place for discipline, clarity, and honest self-examination, not comfort or distraction. Every lesson in this series returns you to a simple demand: distinguish what is yours to control from what is not, and stop surrendering your peace to what was never yours. If you stay through this, you will not hear encouragement to feel better, but instruction on how to think and act better. Number 1. Master yourself before seeking control. You keep trying to command the world because you have not yet learned to command yourself. That is the mistake. That is the hidden failure beneath the noise of your days. You argue with events, with people, with delays, with insults, with luck, with the weather of life itself, as if your irritation could bend reality. It cannot. The world does not move because you are offended. Other people do not become wiser because you are impatient. Time does not wait because you are unready. And while you waste your strength trying to control what was never yours, the only territory that truly belongs to you is left untended. Your judgment, your choices, your aim, your discipline, your refusal to betray yourself. This is where the lesson begins. Master yourself before seeking control. Until you understand that, you will remain a servant wearing the costume of a master. Look at your life honestly. How much of your suffering comes from the thing itself, and how much comes from the story you attach to it? A delay becomes disrespect. A criticism becomes an insult. A refusal becomes humiliation. A loss becomes catastrophe. You take a small wound from fate, and then you press on it with your own imagination until it becomes unbearable. This is not strength. This is confusion. The disciplined mind learns to stop at the first impression and ask, what is this truly? What part of this is mine to judge, and what part is not? The event is not the judgment. The event is only the event. The judgment is where your power lives or dies. If your judgments are careless, your life will be careless. If your judgments are weak, your conduct will be weak. If your judgments are ruled by fear, desire, vanity, resentment, then you will spend your days being dragged around by forces you pretend not to see. A human being is not made great by controlling crowds, money, praise, or outcomes. A human being becomes great by ruling the inner court where every impulse is examined before it is allowed to become an action. This is the first duty. Not to be impressive, not to be admired, not to appear unshaken. The first duty is to be governed. A man who cannot govern himself will try to govern everything else, and because he cannot, he will call his chaos ambition. He will call his impatience urgency. He will call his pride standards. He will call his fear caution. He will call his laziness rest. But names do not change the nature of a thing. If your soul is disordered, your excuses will be clever and your life will still be ruined from the inside. So begin where power actually exists. Begin with the division that saves you from confusion. There are things up to you, your choice, your intention, your answer, your restraint, your honesty, your courage, your refusal to lie to yourself, your willingness to act according to reason rather than mood. And there are things not up to you, other people's opinions, the past, chance, the body's weakness, the praise you receive, the insults you endure, the timing of events, the behavior of the foolish, the final outcome of your efforts. You must learn this distinction not as a phrase to repeat, but as a habit to live by. Every day, several times a day, bring your mind back to it. When the anger rises, ask what is truly yours here. When anxiety grips you, ask what part of this is under your governance. When desire pulls you towards something that will weaken your character, ask whether you are about to trade your freedom for a moment of pleasure. This question is not a theory, it is a weapon. Use it. The world will always tempt you to live outward first. It invites you to think that if circumstances improve, you will become calm. If people change, you will become patient. If success comes, you will become secure. This is backward. A stable life is not built by waiting for the outer world to cooperate. It is built by shaping the inner ruler so that whatever arrives can be met with steadiness. A good person does not say, "Once I have control, I will become peaceful." A good person says, "I will make myself peaceful now, and then I will act from that peace." This is not softness, this is discipline. You are not being asked to surrender your will, you are being asked to train it until it can stand upright in any weather. Consider how you begin your day. Most people wake and immediately hand their mind to the first interruption. The phone, the message, the news, the fear, the unfinished task, the memory of yesterday's embarrassment, the pressure of what must be done. They become reactive before they have even become awake. This is why their lives feel fragmented. The first conquest is the morning conquest. Before you let the world enter you, enter yourself. Sit down before the day begins and remind yourself, today I will meet arrogance without becoming arrogant, anger without becoming angry, praise without becoming vain, resistance without becoming bitter, delay without becoming frantic, and pleasure without becoming weak. I will not ask the day to serve my comfort. I will ask myself to serve reason. This is a stronger beginning than hope. Hope without discipline is vanity. Preparation is power. When you rise, do not ask first what the day will give you. Ask what kind of person you intend to be within the day. The day will bring whatever it brings. The task is not to arrange the stream of events. The task is to remain upright while passing through them. The soul trained in virtue does not wait for favorable conditions. It uses whatever conditions it is given as material for excellence. If the day is easy, you practice gratitude and restraint. If the day is hard, you practice endurance and clarity. If the day is confusing, you practice patience. If the day is insulting, you practice self-command. If the day is dull, you practice attention. In every case, the material is enough. The problem is not the day. The problem is your readiness. You must also learn to distrust the first motion of desire. Desire is not guidance. Desire is often the beginning of captivity. You want what flatters you, what promises ease, what offers immediate relief, what lets you avoid effort, what allows you to be seen as special without becoming worthy, what allows you to indulge without paying the price. But what is easy is not always what is good. What is pleasant is not always what is honorable. What is admired is not always what is useful. If you let desire choose your path, you hand over the steering of your life to whatever passes in front of your eyes. Then you wonder why you feel divided. A divided mind is the result of divided allegiance. If your aim is virtue, then every desire must be tested against it. If a thing cannot make you better, more just, more disciplined, more courageous, more truthful, then it is either neutral or dangerous. Learn to treat needless desire as a fire in dry grass. It spreads quickly and leaves only ash. This is why self-mastery matters before every other ambition. Without self-mastery, power becomes corruption. Without self-mastery, wealth becomes anxiety. Without self-mastery, intelligence becomes manipulation. Without self-mastery, even kindness becomes a performance. You can speak beautifully and still be ruled by appetite. You can be respected and still be inwardly enslaved. You can be busy and still be useless. The measure is not how much you possess, but whether you own yourself. A person who can say no to what weakens character is richer than a person who can say yes to everything. Refusal, when guided by reason, is a form of freedom. The man who cannot refuse himself will one day be refused by life. There are moments when your weakness becomes obvious. You know them well. A remark reaches you and you feel the immediate sting. Someone ignores you and you feel reduced. You are delayed and you become irritated. You are tempted and you begin negotiating with your conscience. You tell yourself that this exception does not matter, that this indulgence is harmless, that this anger is justified, that this dishonesty is small, that this postponement can wait until tomorrow. But your character is built in precisely those moments, not in the grand declarations, not in the speeches, not in the self-image you present to others. Character is built in the tiny private decisions where no applause is present and no one is watching except your own mind. The person who is faithful in small things is already mastering larger things. The person who cheats in small things is already surrendering his freedom. So train yourself in the small private battles. Let no irritation pass without examination. Let no craving pass without challenge. Let no resentment pass without interrogation. Ask of each impulse, what do you want from me? Does following you strengthen my reason or weaken it? Will this action leave me more free or less free? This pause is the beginning of dominion. The gap between impression and response is where your life is won. If you can insert judgment into that gap, you are no longer a slave to reflex. You become a deliberate being. And deliberation is the mark of a human life lived properly. Do not think this kind of training happens once. It must be repeated until it becomes your second nature. The soul is not corrected by hearing noble words only once. It is corrected by returning to them when old habits rise again. That is why the evening examination matters. At the end of the day, sit in silence and judge yourself with fairness, not with theatrics, not with self-hatred, not with indulgent excuses. Ask, where did I act well? Where did I surrender to fear? Where did I let opinion rule me? Where did I choose convenience over principle? Where did I speak too quickly? Where did I fail to endure? Where did I do what I knew was right, even though it was uncomfortable? This is not punishment. This is maintenance of the soul. A life not reviewed becomes a life repeated. A day not examined becomes a habit. And a habit left untouched becomes fate. You must be merciless with your own excuses and gentle with your own effort. That is the right balance. The point is not to despise yourself. The point is to stop deceiving yourself. There is no growth where self-deception is protected. When you excuse your own weaknesses too quickly, you keep them alive. When you call vice a personality trait, you make peace with ruin. When you say, that is just how I am, you stop becoming what you could be. Never speak that way. A rational being is always capable of better judgment. The task is not to be perfect in a day. The task is to refuse surrender in a day. When you fail, note the failure. When you succeed, note the cause. Then return to the work. Many people live as if life owes them ease because they have been hurt. But pain does not excuse disorder. Suffering may explain why the soul has become tense, defensive, proud, or afraid, but it does not justify remaining there. The human being is not noble because nothing has struck him. He is noble because he knows how to meet what strikes him without losing his center. Pain will visit you, loss will visit you, disappointment will visit you, illness will visit you, rejection will visit you. These things are not signs that the universe is against you. They are part of the human condition. What matters is whether each event becomes a teacher or a tyrant. If pain teaches endurance, it has served you. If pain teaches bitterness, you have failed to use it well. Your freedom is not found in avoiding discomfort. It is found in refusing to let discomfort command your character. You should practice discomfort deliberately, not because pain is good in itself, but because voluntary hardship weakens your dependence on luxury. Fast from indulgence now and then. Walk when you could sit. Leave a little space between desire and satisfaction. Accept a cold morning without complaint. Delay a pleasure you do not need. Speak less when silence would preserve your dignity. Do something difficult before it is forced upon you. This trains the soul to know that it can endure. A person who has practiced hardship is less likely to panic when hardship arrives uninvited. He has already seen that his body is not his master, and that comfort is not a right. He learns that he can live with less, and because he can live with less, he can live with more freedom. The person who needs much is easily controlled. The person who requires little stands firm. Do not confuse control with aggression. To govern yourself is not to dominate other people. In fact, the more truly you master yourself, the less you will need to dominate anyone else. You will stop demanding that others validate you. You will stop trying to win every argument. You will stop making your peace dependent on being noticed. You will no longer need to force the world to applaud your significance. Such dependence is a form of poverty. The self-governed person does not chase approval because he knows approval is unstable. He seeks only to act rightly. That is enough. Let others think what they will. Their judgment is outside your command. Your response is not. This is especially important in relationships, where people often confuse possession with love and reaction with sincerity. You cannot govern another person. You cannot force another person to be honest, faithful, kind, or wise. You can only govern your own part. If you try to control another soul, you will turn love into anxiety and care into surveillance. Better to ask, am I acting justly? Am I speaking truthfully? Am I expecting from this person what belongs only to virtue? Am I making my happiness depend on what I cannot command? The answer will reveal much. A wise person loves without clinging, cares without possessing, and remains upright even when others fail him. This is not coldness. This is freedom from slavery to outcome. The same applies at work. Most workplace misery comes not from labor alone, but from vanity, comparison, impatience, and the hunger to be seen. You cannot control the credit given to you. You cannot control the speed of other people. You cannot control whether a superior is just or foolish. You can control whether you do your work with honesty, patience, and precision. You can control whether you become lazy when unseen. You can control whether you lie to impress. You can control whether frustration turns you reckless. Do your duty well and let the outcome belong to nature. Let promotion, recognition, and timing remain what they are, external things, useful perhaps, but not the measure of your worth. Your worth is in the quality of your conduct. That is always available to you. And when you fail, do not dramatize it. Do not turn one stumble into a sentence on your character. A lapse is not the end unless you make it the end, but neither should you excuse it. See it clearly. Correction begins with seeing. If you notice that anger rose before reason, say so. If you notice that greed moved before gratitude, say so. If you notice that fear silenced what should have been spoken, say so. If you notice that envy darkened your judgment, say so. Name the weakness, because what is unnamed continues to rule you, then correct it. This is what honesty means. It is not the performance of humility. It is the refusal to protect your own illusions. When the mind is idle, it wanders toward false necessities. It begins to invent problems, rehearse offenses, imagine future humiliations, and manufacture dissatisfaction. This is why attention must be trained. Pay attention to what is present. Pay attention to the task in front of you. Pay attention to the words you are speaking. Pay attention to the thoughts you allow entrance, Attention is not merely concentration, it is moral vigilance. A careless mind becomes a vulnerable mind. A vigilant mind can catch deception at the gate. Watch your inner life as you would watch a house in a dangerous neighborhood. Do not invite every impulse inside. Do not let every memory become a doctrine. Do not let every fear become a prophecy. Examine, choose, admit only what is worthy. You may be tempted to think that self-mastery is a harsh life. It is not. It is a clear life. The undisciplined person is not free because he has no restraint. He is burdened by constant inner conflict. He wakes wanting one thing and decides another. He resolves in the morning and surrenders by noon. He promises himself change and then bargains it away for comfort. He is not at peace, he is divided. But the disciplined person, though he may endure difficulty, has an inward order. He is not dragged around by whatever appears. He knows what he stands for. He knows what must be refused. He knows what must be borne. He knows that virtue is the only true good because it is the only thing no one can take from him. This knowledge lightens the soul. It removes the frantic search for things that cannot secure us. Virtue is not an abstract ornament, it is practical strength. Justice means you do not cheat, use, or deceive. Courage means you do not retreat from what reason demands because of fear. Self-control means you do not become a servant of appetite. Wisdom means you see things as they are and not as your cravings wish them to be. These are not lofty words for special occasions. They are daily requirements. In conversation, in work, in conflict, in solitude, in temptation, in disappointment, in success. If a choice does not help you become more just, courageous, self-controlled, and wise, then it is not helping you at all. It may feed your appetite, it may feed your vanity, it may feed your fear, but it will not feed your soul. And what is the soul if not the ruling part of you that decides your life's shape? This is why self-governance is sacred. You are not a thing to be pushed by every mood. You are a rational being meant to live according to nature, which means according to reason and virtue. The natural life is not the wild life of impulse. It is the ordered life of a mind aligned with what is good. When you live against reason, you do not merely make mistakes, you become smaller. Every unjust act diminishes the doer. Every act of cowardice weakens the spirit. Every act of indulgence deepens dependence. Every lie leaves a stain on the one who tells it. The cost of vice is not paid later only, it is paid immediately in the inward collapse of the person who chooses it. Do not wait to become serious about this. People waste years believing they will begin tomorrow. Tomorrow is a convenient lie. It lets you keep your present habits while borrowing the language of future resolve. But the only time in which you can govern yourself is now. Now is when desire arises. Now is when anger rises. Now is when patience is tested. Now is when honesty must speak. Now is when courage must stand. Tomorrow is a memory of discipline that may never come. The soul is built in the present moment, not in promises about the present moment's successor. So cut away delay. Act while the insight is alive. The more you postpone self-command, the more you prove that you are still ruled by the very weakness you claim to be studying. There is also a quiet pride in self-control that must be guarded against. The disciplined person can become pleased with his own discipline and then begin to think himself above others. Do not do this. That too would be slavery, only dressed in nobility. The point is not to become superior in your own eyes. The point is to become truthful, useful, and just. If you are improving, be grateful. If you see someone failing, do not inflate yourself. Remember that the same weakness lives in human nature and that you too must remain watchful. Humility here is not self-hatred. It is recognition that vigilance must continue. No one is exempt from needing discipline. No one graduates from the need to examine the self. The work of the soul continues as long as breath continues. When circumstances shake you, remember that the purpose of philosophy is not to remove all trouble from life. The purpose is to make you fit to meet life without betrayal. The storm is not a failure of the method. The storm is the test. A ship is not praised when the sea is calm. It is praised when it remains seaworthy through rough water. So too with you. A tranquil day does not prove your strength. A difficult one reveals it. This is why you should welcome difficulty as a training ground, though not seek it foolishly. The wise person does not beg for suffering, but when it arrives he uses it. He says, "Here is another chance to practice not being ruled by appearances. Here is another chance to choose reason over fear. Here is another chance to show that I am not dependent on ease to be good." You will find that the more you practice this, the less dramatic life becomes, and the more meaningful it becomes. Drama belongs to the person who has not yet distinguished the essential from the superficial. Meaning belongs to the person who knows that only character is secure. Wealth can be taken, reputation can be lost, relationships can change, health can decline, possessions can vanish, status can disappear in a moment, but the habit of acting well, judging well, and enduring well remains available until the last breath. That is why no external loss can truly defeat the person who has made virtue his aim. He may be wounded, but he is not conquered. He may be delayed, but he is not broken. He may be tested, but he does not surrender the ruling mind. So ask yourself now, with no vanity and no mercy for falsehood, what rules me? Is it reason or reaction? Is it duty or appetite? Is it the wish to be admired or the resolve to be good? Is it what is up to me or what is not? If you are honest, you will see where you remain divided. Good. Let that sight not discourage you. Let it instruct you. A wound discovered can be cleaned. A wound hidden festers. The fact that you can see your disorder means you still have time to correct it. Use that time. Do not waste it proving to yourself how long you have been weak. Strength is not built by memorizing weakness. It is built by acting differently now. Start with one clear rule. Before reacting, pause. Before speaking, pause. Before consenting to a craving, pause. Before resenting a setback, pause. In that pause, separate appearance from reality. Ask whether the thing before you is truly evil, truly good, or merely uncomfortable, inconvenient, or flattering. Most of what disturbs people is not morally dangerous at all. It is only annoying, painful, or disappointing. These things are not the ruin of a life. The ruin comes when the mind declares them unbearable and then behaves as though the declaration were truth. Do not grant that power to the first impression. Question it, test it, reduce it to its proper size. A delay is a delay. An insult is air until you agree to be cut by it. A temptation is an invitation, not a command. A loss of reputation is not a loss of character unless you surrender to it. Keep things in proportion. A proportionate mind is a free mind. An exaggerated mind is a captive mind. Most people suffer because they enlarge what should be small and ignore what should be great. They make trivial things enormous and moral things invisible. They panic over inconvenience and sleep over dishonesty. They grieve over not being noticed and remain indifferent to the corruption of their own conduct. Correct this, and your life will begin to change from the inside out. Let the standards of your soul become higher than the demands of your comfort. Let principle outrank preference. Let self-command outrank impulse. Let truth outrank convenience. Let duty outrank mood. This is the path to a life that cannot easily be shaken. And when the day ends, return again to yourself. Not to condemn, not to congratulate, to inspect, to judge, to prepare for tomorrow. Ask whether you lived as one who knew his own power. Ask whether you remembered that the only true defeat is to betray reason. Ask whether you treated your time as precious or as waste. Ask whether you disciplined desire or let it roam. Ask whether you practiced accepting what cannot be changed. Ask whether your speech was just, your thoughts were clean, your attention was steady, your reactions were measured. Then sleep with the clarity that comes from a life not entirely wasted on self-deception. This is the kind of peace no fortune can give, and no misfortune can steal. Remember this above all: the world will always offer you enough reasons to lose yourself. That is never the scarcity. The scarcity is the willingness to remain with yourself honestly and do the hard work of governing what is yours to govern. But once you decide, truly decide, that your own soul is your first responsibility, the old excuses begin to lose their power. You stop begging life to be easier. You stop waiting for people to behave. You stop treating your impulses as authorities. You stop making your peace depend on outcomes. You begin living from the only place where freedom is real. From there, action becomes cleaner, speech becomes firmer, suffering becomes more bearable, pleasure becomes less dangerous, failure becomes instructive, success becomes less intoxicating, and the day no longer owns you. This is the lesson most people learn too late. Self-mastery is not one task among many. It is the foundation under every task. Without it, every victory is unstable, and every loss becomes a disaster. With it, even a hard life can be lived well. So stop reaching outward first. Turn inward. Establish command where command belongs. Guard the judgment. Train the desire. Accept what you cannot alter. Act justly. Speak truthfully. Endure without complaint. Review yourself without illusion. Repeat these things until they are no longer words, but the shape of your life. The hour is not tomorrow, the hour is now. And the only person you must begin to rule is the one in your own mind. Number 2, time leaves no second chances. Time is the one companion that walks beside every human being without ever slowing its pace. It does not stop because you are uncertain. It does not wait because you are afraid. It does not return because you suddenly understand what you should have done. Every sunrise quietly removes one more page from your life, whether you used the previous one wisely or carelessly. This is not a reason for fear. It is a reason for clarity. The greatest mistake is not that life is short. The greatest mistake is believing there will always be another opportunity to become the person you already know you should be. Look carefully at how you spend a single ordinary day. Hours disappear through distraction. Minutes are surrendered to unnecessary irritation. Energy is consumed by arguments that accomplish nothing. The mind wanders through memories that cannot be altered and futures that have not yet arrived. Then evening comes, and you wonder where the day has gone. The day did not disappear. It was exchanged moment by moment for judgments you never examined and habits you never questioned. The disciplined life begins when you understand that every passing hour presents a moral choice. You are never merely passing time. You are always shaping character. Every reaction strengthens either reason or impulse. Every decision feeds either virtue or weakness. Every conversation leaves the soul either more truthful or more careless. Time itself remains indifferent. It is your use of it that determines whether your life becomes ordered or wasted. Many people believe they are waiting for the right moment to begin living well. They tell themselves they will become disciplined after the current difficulty ends. They will become patient once circumstances improve. They will become courageous when fear disappears. They will become honest when honesty becomes comfortable. Yet life never arranges itself to remove the need for virtue. Every season brings new challenges, new uncertainty, and new opportunities to postpone what should already have begun. This delay is one of the most dangerous habits the mind can create. It disguises itself as preparation while quietly becoming surrender. You convince yourself that tomorrow will offer greater strength, clearer thinking, or better conditions. Yet tomorrow arrives carrying the same undisciplined mind that postponed yesterday. Without changing your judgments today, another day merely repeats the same pattern under a different date. Your greatest loss rarely announces itself with dramatic events. It comes through unnoticed moments. It comes through words spoken without thought, through resentment carried longer than reason allows, through opportunities to practice justice that were ignored because pride demanded satisfaction instead, through moments where silence would have preserved peace, yet impatience insisted on having the final word. These small choices accumulate until they quietly become your character. This is why the examined life refuses to treat ordinary moments as insignificant. Washing dishes, speaking with family, performing simple work, standing in traffic, facing disappointment, receiving criticism, waiting in silence. None of these moments are empty. Each one offers another opportunity to govern your own mind. The wise person understands that greatness is not reserved for extraordinary circumstances. Greatness is revealed by how ordinary moments are used. Consider how often you surrender the present by arguing with reality. Something happens that does not match your preference. Immediately the mind begins resisting what has already occurred. It repeats the event, imagines different outcomes, blames another person, searches for someone responsible, or complains that life should have unfolded differently. Yet while your thoughts struggle against what cannot be changed, the present moment quietly passes unused. You lose today's opportunity attempting to rewrite yesterday's event. Reality asks for something much simpler. Accept that what has happened already belongs outside your authority. Refusing to accept this does not restore what was lost. It merely adds unnecessary suffering to an event that has already finished. Acceptance is not approval. It is the recognition that reason must begin with facts instead of wishes. Once you stop arguing with reality, your attention becomes available for what actually belongs to you. You may not choose every event, but you always choose the quality of your response. This is where your freedom exists, not within circumstances themselves, but within your judgment about them. A delayed plan becomes an opportunity to practice patience. An unexpected obstacle becomes training for perseverance. An insult becomes an opportunity to guard your dignity instead of your pride. Every circumstance offers material for virtue if your mind remains disciplined enough to recognize it. Most people fear losing possessions, reputation, comfort, or status, yet few fear wasting another day through carelessness. This is a strange blindness. Wealth lost may be earned again. Health lost may partially recover. Relationships damaged may sometimes heal. But no person has ever reclaimed a single hour already spent. Once time leaves your hands, it belongs permanently to the past. This truth should not produce anxiety. Anxiety itself wastes the very thing it fears losing. Instead, let this awareness sharpen your attention. Let it remove unnecessary delay. Let it simplify your priorities. Many concerns disappear once you remember that life is measured not only by years, but by the quality of awareness brought into each passing day. Begin each morning with a simple examination before the world claims your attention. Ask yourself what kind of person reason requires you to become today. Do not ask whether the day will be pleasant. That belongs outside your authority. Ask whether you will remain honest if challenged, whether you will remain patient if delayed, whether you will remain just when treated unfairly, whether you will preserve self-command when emotion demands immediate reaction. Prepare your character before circumstances begin testing it. This morning discipline creates an entirely different relationship with time. Instead of waiting for events to determine your mood, you enter the day already committed to virtue. Circumstances become opportunities rather than obstacles. Success no longer inflates you because your purpose was never external achievement alone. Failure no longer destroys you because your true objective remained faithful conduct throughout the attempt. Throughout the day, practice interrupting automatic judgment. Whenever emotion rises quickly, pause before accepting its conclusion. Ask whether the impression deserves your agreement. The first appearance of a situation often arrives colored by fear, pride, desire, or irritation. Your responsibility is not to obey that first appearance, but to examine it carefully. Someone ignores your greeting. The undisciplined mind immediately assumes disrespect. The disciplined mind recognizes uncertainty. Many explanations remain possible. Someone criticizes your work. The undisciplined mind hears humiliation. The disciplined mind asks whether correction exists within the criticism. Even if the criticism is unjust, another person's judgment never determines your own character unless you permit it. This habit of examining impressions protects both your peace and your time. Hours are no longer consumed by imaginary offenses. Emotional storms lose their authority because they are questioned before they become beliefs. You gradually discover that much of what once disturbed you existed only because your judgments remained unexamined. Guard your speech with equal discipline. Words consume time long after they are spoken. A careless sentence may create months of conflict. An impatient reply may damage trust built over years. Silence, when guided by reason, often preserves more than argument ever achieves. Before speaking, ask whether your words are true, necessary, and consistent with justice. If they fail this examination, let them remain unspoken. Do not become obsessed with accomplishing countless tasks while neglecting the condition of your own mind. A busy person is not necessarily a disciplined person. Constant activity often disguises inward disorder. You may complete many projects while remaining a stranger to yourself. Better to perform fewer actions with complete integrity than many actions governed by distraction and vanity. Your relationships also reveal how wisely you use time. Every conversation either strengthens understanding or weakens it. Every encounter either expresses patience or impatience. The people around you do not merely receive your words, they experience your character. Ask yourself whether those closest to you encounter a person ruled by reason or by impulse. The answer is found not in your intentions but in your daily conduct. Remember that each disagreement offers an opportunity greater than winning an argument. It offers the chance to preserve justice while another person abandons it. Anyone can remain pleasant when agreement exists. Character becomes visible when opinions differ. If another person chooses anger, you remain responsible only for your own judgment. Refusing to imitate another person's disorder is itself a victory of the soul. As evening approaches, do not rush toward distraction merely because the day's labor has ended. Reserve time for honest examination. Sit quietly with yourself. Review the entire day without excuse and without self-condemnation. Ask where reason governed your actions. Ask where impulse quietly reclaimed authority. Notice moments where fear disguised itself as caution or pride disguised itself as principle. These observations are not failures, they become the beginning of correction. When you discover error, acknowledge it plainly. Do not defend it with clever explanations. Excuses preserve weakness. Honest recognition weakens its hold. Promise yourself no impossible perfection. Promise only greater vigilance tomorrow. Improvement belongs to those willing to confront themselves without illusion. Understand that discipline is never completed. Every day presents fresh opportunities for either growth or neglect. The examined life does not seek permanent arrival. It embraces continuous refinement. As long as breath remains, reason continues inviting you toward greater wisdom, greater justice, greater courage, and greater self-command. You may sometimes believe your efforts are too small to matter. You may think a single patient response, one restrained judgment, or one honest decision cannot possibly transform your life. Yet character is never built through isolated dramatic moments. It is built through repeated obedience to reason in countless ordinary situations. One disciplined choice prepares the next. One truthful action strengthens the next. Eventually, the person who once struggled against every impulse begins acting naturally according to virtue, because discipline has become habit. Do not envy those who appear successful while remaining inwardly governed by fear, pride, or endless desire. External achievement without self-government remains unstable. A person may possess influence, wealth, or admiration while remaining unable to endure criticism, disappointment, or uncertainty. Such success rests upon fragile foundations. True strength belongs to the one whose peace cannot be purchased by fortune or destroyed by misfortune. Time eventually removes every external possession. Positions end, applause fades, physical strength declines, familiar faces disappear, seasons change without asking permission, yet one possession remains available until life's final moment, the ability to choose your own judgment with integrity. As long as reason remains active, the opportunity to practice virtue remains alive. This is why no day should be considered ordinary. Every sunrise quietly asks the same question. Will you spend this day chasing what was never yours to keep? Or will you strengthen the only possession that cannot be taken from you? Every sunset records your answer without judgment or emotion. It simply closes another page that will never be reopened. Let this truth become your companion rather than your burden. Do not fear the passing of time. Fear living without attention while time passes unnoticed. Refuse to postpone the work that belongs to today. Refuse to surrender another morning to distraction, another afternoon to resentment, another evening to self-deception. Return again and again to reason. Return to justice. Return to moderation. Return to courage. Let every passing hour become evidence that your character is growing stronger than your circumstances. Time offers each person the same silent invitation, yet it never repeats the same moment twice. Accept that invitation now. Govern your judgments carefully. Guard your attention faithfully. Live each day as though its true purpose is not merely to reach tomorrow, but to leave your own soul more disciplined than it was when the sun first rose. When that becomes your daily practice, time no longer appears as an enemy stealing your life. It becomes the faithful companion revealing, one day after another, exactly who you have chosen to become. Number 3. Desire creates invisible chains. There is a prison that has no walls, no locked gates, and no visible chains, yet countless people spend their entire lives inside it without ever realizing they are captive. They wake each morning believing they are making free choices, yet every decision is quietly directed by cravings they never questioned. They believe they possess their desires, but in truth their desires possess them. This is one of the greatest deceptions the human mind can accept. The moment you believe you must have something outside yourself before you can be peaceful, you have already surrendered your freedom. Look honestly at your own mind. Notice how quickly it says, "I will be content when this happens. I will finally be calm once I receive that recognition. I will become confident after I acquire more. I will be at peace when others treat me differently." Each sentence appears harmless, yet each one quietly places your inner condition into hands that do not belong to you. The more conditions you attach to your peace, the more fragile your peace becomes. You no longer govern your own life. You wait for fortune to decide whether you deserve tranquility. Desire rarely announces itself as an enemy. It speaks with the voice of necessity. It convinces you that satisfaction lies just beyond your present circumstances. It tells you that one more achievement, one more possession, one more victory, one more approval, or one more pleasure will finally complete what feels incomplete within you. Yet every fulfilled desire soon gives birth to another. The mind that has never learned moderation cannot recognize enough. It keeps extending the finish line because its hunger was never created by lacking external things. It was created by lacking discipline. This is why the pursuit itself often becomes endless. The object changes, but the restless pattern remains unchanged. Today it is wealth. Tomorrow it is influence. Later it becomes admiration, comfort, certainty, or constant entertainment. The names differ, but the chain remains the same. You become dependent upon what cannot remain permanently in your possession. The more tightly you grasp what changes, the more unstable your own peace becomes. The disciplined mind begins by asking a different question. Instead of asking what it wants, it asks whether wanting this thing serves virtue or weakens it. This single habit transforms the entire direction of a life. Before allowing desire to become intention, reason must examine it carefully. Does this pursuit strengthen honesty, justice, courage, moderation, and wisdom? Or does it quietly encourage vanity, impatience, greed, fear, or dependence? Every desire deserves this examination because every desire carries consequences beyond the object itself. Many people assume suffering comes from deprivation. More often it comes from attachment. You suffer not because you lack everything you desire, but because you convince yourself you cannot remain whole without possessing it. This judgment creates unnecessary slavery. An object outside your authority now governs your emotional state. If it appears, you celebrate. If it disappears, you despair. Your peace rises and falls according to circumstances that never belonged to your control in the first place. Notice how desire influences your relationships. Sometimes you stop seeing another person as a fellow human being worthy of justice and begin seeing them as a source of emotional security. You expect them to remove your loneliness, validate your worth, calm your fears, or satisfy expectations they never agreed to carry. When they inevitably fail to fulfill every hidden demand, disappointment follows. Yet the disappointment often begins not with their actions, but with your attachment to an imagined outcome. The same pattern appears in work. Ambition itself is not the danger. The danger begins when your identity becomes inseparable from success. You no longer perform your duty because it is right. You perform it because your sense of worth depends upon recognition. Every obstacle now feels personal. Every criticism becomes unbearable. Every setback threatens your confidence because your happiness has become chained to results rather than character. Reason asks you to reverse this order completely. Let your commitment belong to the quality of your actions, not the certainty of their reward. Perform every task with excellence because excellence belongs entirely within your authority. Whether others notice, approve, or reward your effort remains outside your command. Once you understand this distinction, your work becomes steadier. You no longer chase approval. You simply refuse to betray your own standards. Desire also disguises itself through comparison. You observe another person's possessions, opportunities, reputation, or achievements, and quietly decide your own life has become insufficient. Nothing in your circumstances changed, only your judgment changed. A peaceful mind became disturbed because it abandoned gratitude and entered competition with appearances. Comparison feeds endless dissatisfaction because there will always be someone possessing more of whatever you choose to admire. Instead of comparing fortunes, compare character. Ask whether you have become more truthful than yesterday. Ask whether your patience has grown stronger. Ask whether fear governs fewer of your decisions. Ask whether your words have become more measured, your judgments more careful, your conduct more just. These comparisons remain entirely within your authority. They strengthen virtue rather than envy. The first discipline each morning should not concern your schedule but your desires. Before beginning your daily responsibilities, sit quietly and observe your own mind. Ask yourself what it already wants before the day has even begun. Perhaps it seeks praise, perhaps it fears criticism, perhaps it longs for comfort, perhaps it demands certainty. Whatever appears, do not condemn it immediately, simply recognize it. A desire seen clearly loses much of its hidden influence. What remains unconscious quietly directs your life. What becomes conscious can finally be governed. Throughout the day, continue observing each new craving before accepting its authority. Whenever the mind insists, "I must have this," pause. Ask whether this is truly necessary for living with virtue or merely attractive to your imagination. Many impulses lose their power once examined honestly. They relied upon urgency, not truth. By slowing your judgment, you prevent impulse from becoming action. There will be moments when desire becomes especially persuasive. You will want immediate revenge after being insulted. You will crave comfort instead of responsibility. You will seek distraction instead of reflection. You will prefer convenience over honesty. These moments determine whether reason governs your life or merely advises it. Every refusal to obey an unhealthy impulse strengthens your freedom. Every surrender makes the next surrender easier. Understand that moderation is not deprivation, it is intelligent use. The disciplined person does not reject every pleasant experience. Rather, they refuse to become dependent upon pleasure. They enjoy what is present without fearing its absence. They appreciate comfort without requiring comfort. They welcome success without making success the measure of their own worth. This balance protects inner freedom because external changes no longer dictate inner stability. Train yourself through voluntary restraint. Occasionally decline a pleasure that is easily available. Delay immediate satisfaction even when no one requires it. Eat with gratitude rather than excess. Speak only when your words improve the moment. Resist unnecessary purchases prompted only by impulse. Spend periods without entertainment, simply observing your own thoughts. These practices are not punishments. They remind the mind that it remains capable of choosing reason over appetite. You may discover discomfort during these exercises. That discomfort reveals something valuable. It exposes where dependence has quietly taken root. If a brief absence of pleasure creates agitation, the pleasure has already begun governing you. Freedom does not mean possessing everything. Freedom means remaining undisturbed when unnecessary things are absent. The same discipline applies to emotional desires. Many people secretly desire constant admiration. They seek approval through every conversation, every accomplishment, and every decision. They become anxious whenever appreciation fails to appear. Yet another person's opinion has never possessed the authority to determine your character. Praise may be pleasant, but it cannot improve your virtue. Criticism may be unpleasant, but it cannot damage your integrity unless you abandon it yourself. When approval becomes a necessity, honesty often disappears. You begin adjusting your words to satisfy listeners instead of expressing truth. You avoid difficult duties because they may invite misunderstanding. You shape your conduct according to popularity rather than justice. Slowly, almost unnoticed, you stop belonging to yourself. Your life becomes organized around preserving impressions instead of preserving character. Release this burden deliberately. Allow yourself to perform good actions without expecting recognition. Complete responsibilities even when no one observes your effort. Let justice become its own reward. A conscience aligned with reason offers a quieter satisfaction than public admiration ever can. One depends upon changing opinions, the other depends upon your own unwavering commitment to virtue. You should also examine the desire for certainty. The mind often insists upon knowing exactly how events will unfold. before it is willing to act. Yet life has never offered such guarantees. Waiting for complete certainty often becomes another form of avoidance. Your responsibility is not to control outcomes. Your responsibility is to choose the most reasonable action available with the understanding you presently possess. Once you have acted with wisdom and integrity, the remaining result belongs beyond your authority. This understanding removes enormous unnecessary pressure. You no longer measure yourself by whether events unfold according to preference. You measure yourself by whether your choices remained faithful to reason. Success becomes internal before it ever becomes external. At the close of each day, conduct another examination, this time focused entirely upon desire. Ask yourself which cravings influenced your actions today. Did you speak unnecessarily because you wanted attention? Did irritation arise because reality refused to satisfy your preferences? Did fear prevent necessary action because comfort seemed more attractive than courage? Did you sacrifice honesty for acceptance? Observe these moments carefully without hatred. The purpose is correction, not punishment. Then ask a second question. Where did you remain free? Where did you choose restraint instead of indulgence? Where did you refuse unnecessary anger? Where did you complete your duty despite lacking recognition? These moments deserve equal attention because they reveal the gradual strengthening of your ruling mind. Progress often appears quietly before it becomes obvious. As this practice continues, you begin noticing a remarkable change. Desires still appear, but they no longer issue commands. They become suggestions examined by reason rather than orders obeyed automatically. This is genuine freedom. Freedom is not the absence of desire. Freedom is the ability to decide whether desire deserves your agreement. Eventually, your greatest satisfaction no longer comes from obtaining what you once chased so desperately. It comes from recognizing that your peace has become increasingly independent of changing circumstances. You discover that a calm conscience weighs more than temporary excitement. Steady character becomes more valuable than unpredictable fortune. Simplicity becomes richer than excess, because simplicity cannot easily be taken away. Remember that every unnecessary desire quietly negotiates against your liberty. It offers excitement in exchange for dependence. It promises satisfaction while increasing vulnerability. Every disciplined refusal, however, strengthens the one possession that cannot be stolen from you, the ability to govern your own judgments according to reason. The world will continue offering countless objects for your attention, your admiration, and your attachment. You cannot prevent these invitations from appearing. You can, however, decide which ones deserve entrance into your mind. This decision belongs entirely to you. Guard it carefully. Live each day with the understanding that nothing external has the authority to complete your character. Character is completed only through repeated acts of wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Everything else remains temporary. Everything else belongs to fortune. Build your life upon what fortune cannot remove. The invisible chains of desire are broken one judgment at a time. Each moment you refuse to surrender your peace to what lies outside your authority, another link falls away. Each time you choose virtue over appetite, reason over impulse, gratitude over craving, and discipline over excess, you reclaim another part of yourself. One day you will notice that the world has not become easier. Pleasure still appears, loss still arrives, praise still comes and goes, comfort still changes with circumstance, yet something essential has transformed. None of these things rules you any longer. Your happiness no longer waits for permission from events beyond your control. Your mind has learned to stand where lasting freedom has always existed, within the disciplined use of your own judgment. Number 4. Accept fate without inner resistance. There is a quiet battle taking place inside you almost every day, and most of the time you do not even notice it. It is not the battle against difficult people, unexpected setbacks, financial pressure, illness, disappointment, or uncertainty. Those are only the outer events. The true battle is the one your own mind begins the moment reality refuses to match your preference. Without speaking a single word, you argue with what has already happened. You silently insist that life should have unfolded differently. You replay conversations that cannot be changed. You imagine better outcomes that no longer exist. You resist the facts standing directly before you. This hidden resistance slowly exhausts your spirit, not because reality is too heavy, but because you insist on carrying both reality and your refusal to accept it at the same time. Look carefully at how often your peace depends upon life behaving according to your expectations. You make plans, and when events interrupt them, irritation immediately appears. You trust someone, and when they disappoint you, resentment settles into your thinking. You work diligently, and when recognition does not arrive, discouragement quietly grows. None of these reactions begins with the event itself. They begin with an unnoticed judgment that says, "This should not have happened." That single sentence becomes the seed of unnecessary suffering because it attempts to negotiate with something that already belongs to the past. The disciplined mind understands a truth that the undisciplined mind continually forgets. Reality does not require your approval before it exists. Whether you welcome it or reject it, the event remains unchanged. The only question left is whether you will meet it with reason or with resistance. Resistance cannot reverse what has already occurred. It merely creates a second burden that did not previously exist. First, there is the event itself. Then there is the struggle against accepting it. Often the second burden weighs far more heavily than the first. Many people imagine acceptance means surrendering effort or abandoning responsibility. They confuse acceptance with passivity because they have never separated facts from choices. Acceptance simply means beginning with what is true rather than with what you wish were true. Once you clearly recognize the situation before you, reason can finally begin its work. Refusing to see reality never improves your ability to respond wisely. It only delays the moment when intelligent action becomes possible. Think of a traveler who discovers that the road ahead has been blocked by a fallen tree. One traveler wastes hours shouting at the obstacle, complaining that it should not be there, blaming the weather, blaming chance, blaming everyone except his own refusal to move forward differently. Another traveler sees exactly the same obstacle, accepts that it now belongs to reality, and immediately begins searching for another path. Both encountered the same event. Only one remained free because only one refused to waste strength fighting facts that no longer belonged within human choice. This same lesson applies to every area of your life. Loss enters without asking permission. Aging continues without waiting for agreement. Other people reveal weaknesses you cannot remove. Circumstances shift without consulting your preferences. Fortune changes direction unexpectedly. If your peace depends upon preventing these realities, your peace will always remain fragile. But if your peace depends upon governing your own judgments regardless of changing conditions, then external uncertainty loses much of its power over you. Observe how quickly the mind invents unnecessary suffering through imagined alternatives. Instead of dealing with the present, it asks endless questions that can never receive useful answers. What if I had chosen differently? What if they had understood me? What if this opportunity had never disappeared? What if life had been more generous? These thoughts appear reflective, yet they rarely produce wisdom. Most often they produce attachment to versions of reality that no longer exist. While attention remains trapped inside imaginary histories, the only moment where virtue can actually be practiced quietly slips away. Bring your attention back to where your authority truly begins. You cannot govern what has already happened. You cannot command another person's character. You cannot instruct fortune to arrange life according to your preferences. Yet you remain entirely responsible for how you interpret each event. what principles guide your next action, and whether your conduct remains worthy despite changing circumstances. This is not a small responsibility. It is the greatest responsibility you possess. Every morning, before the world begins presenting its uncertainties, prepare your own mind for what cannot be predicted. Do not expect the day to unfold comfortably. Expect opportunities to practice steadiness. Expect interruptions that require patience. Expect misunderstandings that require fairness. Expect delays that require composure. Expect moments when desire urges one direction while reason points another. By preparing your character rather than your expectations, you enter the day already aligned with what truly belongs to your control. When something unexpected happens, refuse to grant your first emotional reaction immediate authority. The first impression often arrives carrying fear, frustration, disappointment, or anger. None of these feelings automatically reveals the truth about the situation. Pause before agreeing with them. Ask yourself whether the disturbance comes from the event itself or from the meaning you have assigned to it. This question interrupts the automatic habit of emotional surrender. It creates space for reason to examine what impulse immediately declares. Suppose someone speaks harshly to you. Your first impulse may insist that your dignity has been damaged, yet your dignity does not depend upon another person's words. It depends upon your own conduct afterward. If you answer injustice with justice, you preserve yourself. If you imitate another person's disorder, you voluntarily abandon your own standards. Their behavior belongs to them. Your response belongs entirely to you. Never exchange ownership of your own character for temporary satisfaction gained through retaliation. There will also be moments when fate removes something precious from your life. Perhaps it is an opportunity, a relationship, a familiar routine, or a cherished plan. The disciplined response does not pretend such losses carry no weight. Human beings naturally feel disappointment when valuable things pass away. The important question is what follows that disappointment. Will grief become wisdom, or will it become permanent resistance? Will you honor what has been lost by continuing to live well, or will you allow loss itself to become the ruler of every future decision? The mind often believes acceptance dishonors what has disappeared. In reality, endless resistance dishonors both the past and the present. It chains your attention to something that no longer asks anything from you. Acceptance does not erase affection, effort, or memory. It simply refuses to let yesterday imprison today's ability to practice virtue. Consider also how often you resist your own limitations. You become impatient because learning takes time. You criticize yourself harshly because growth remains incomplete. You expect immediate mastery over habits formed across many years. This too is resistance against reality. Improvement follows consistent discipline, not emotional impatience. Accept where you presently stand without becoming satisfied to remain there. Honest recognition creates the proper foundation for meaningful progress. Each evening before sleep, return quietly to yourself. Review the day's events without exaggeration. Notice where reality challenged your preferences. Notice where complaint replaced understanding. Notice where frustration consumed energy that could have been directed toward wiser action. Do not search for reasons to condemn yourself. Search for opportunities to strengthen tomorrow's judgment. Every honest examination removes another layer of self-deception. You will discover that many disturbances begin long before visible emotion appears. They begin with hidden expectations. You expected uninterrupted comfort. You expected perfect fairness. You expected complete certainty. You expected every effort to produce immediate reward. None of these expectations belongs to reality itself. They belong only to imagination. When imagination becomes your measure of life, disappointment becomes inevitable. Replace expectation with readiness. Readiness remains flexible because it understands that external events cannot always be predicted. Another valuable practice is to observe your language throughout the day. Listen for the quiet complaints that repeatedly escape your own mouth or remain unspoken inside your thinking. Notice phrases that accuse life itself of being unreasonable. Each complaint deserves examination. Ask whether complaining improves the situation or merely deepens resistance. Most complaints achieve nothing beyond strengthening the habit of inward opposition. Every unnecessary complaint trains the mind to focus upon what cannot be altered instead of what still remains possible. There is tremendous freedom in abandoning the demand that life constantly justify itself before you. Events owe no explanation before arriving. They simply become part of the material from which your character is shaped. The disciplined person treats every circumstance as an opportunity to express wisdom, justice, moderation, or courage. Nothing is wasted because every experience becomes material for virtue. When fortune appears favorable, remain humble. Pleasant circumstances do not prove superior character. They merely provide different conditions for practicing discipline. Gratitude protects you from becoming entitled. Remember that every comfort remains temporary. Enjoy what is present without demanding that it remain forever. Attachment to permanence creates future suffering because change belongs to the nature of life itself. When fortune becomes difficult, remain equally steady. Hardship does not remove your ability to choose honorable conduct. It simply asks more from your judgment. Difficult seasons reveal whether your principles truly guide your actions or whether convenience secretly governs them. Character becomes visible when comfort disappears. The mind trained through daily discipline remains capable of justice even while facing discomfort. Do not seek control over the entire path ahead. Seek clarity regarding the next right action. The future remains uncertain regardless of your planning, yet the present always offers one reasonable choice waiting to be made. Complete that choice faithfully, then complete the next. A life governed by reason is built through successive moments of intelligent action rather than endless anxiety about distant outcomes. One of the greatest signs of inward maturity is the disappearance of unnecessary argument with reality. You no longer waste precious energy asking why events happened to you personally. Instead, you calmly ask what this situation now requires from your character. This single shift transforms every difficulty into instruction. You stop viewing yourself as the victim of circumstances and begin recognizing yourself as the guardian of your own judgment. Remember that acceptance never removes responsibility. If injustice can reasonably be corrected, act with courage. If mistakes can honestly be repaired, repair them. If duties remain unfinished, complete them. Acceptance concerns facts already established. Action concerns choices still available. Confusing these two creates either helplessness or arrogance. Wisdom recognizes exactly where one ends and the other begins. As your discipline deepens, you will notice that unexpected events lose much of their ability to disturb you. Not because life becomes easier, but because your expectations become wiser. You stop demanding certainty from an uncertain world. You stop demanding permanence from changing circumstances. You stop demanding perfection from imperfect human beings, including yourself. In their place grows something far stronger than optimism. A stable confidence develops because your peace no longer depends upon controlling what was never yours to command. Eventually you realize that fate has never been your greatest obstacle. Your resistance to fate has been. Every complaint, every resentment, every refusal to acknowledge reality added weight that life itself never required you to carry. The moment you release that burden, your strength becomes available for what truly deserves it, the cultivation of your own character. The world will continue changing. Seasons will pass, plans will shift, people will surprise you, success will appear and disappear. Loss will visit every life in different forms. None of these realities can be negotiated away. Yet within every changing circumstance remains one constant responsibility. Guard the quality of your own judgment. Preserve justice when treated unfairly. Preserve moderation when surrounded by excess. Preserve courage when uncertainty appears. Preserve wisdom when emotion urges haste. Accept each day exactly as it arrives, not because every event is pleasant, but because every event offers another opportunity to live according to reason. Let your mind stop resisting what has already entered reality. Let it instead devote its full strength to choosing what is honorable within the present moment. When inner resistance falls away, you discover something that external fortune can neither grant nor remove. A steady soul that walks through changing circumstances without surrendering its own integrity. Number 5. Protect your mind from opinions. Your mind is more valuable than any possession you will ever own, yet it is often left unguarded. You carefully protect your home, your money, and your reputation, but you allow passing opinions to enter your thoughts without examination. Every careless remark, every criticism, every compliment, every rumor, and every public judgment is invited inside as though it deserves authority. Before long, your peace no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the changing voices of other people. The first duty of a disciplined person is to recognize that another person's opinion is never the same thing as truth. An opinion is simply a judgment formed by another mind according to its own understanding, its own emotions, its own limitations, and its own experiences. It may contain wisdom, or it may contain confusion. To accept it immediately without examination is to surrender the authority that reason requires you to keep. Notice how quickly your thoughts change after hearing the approval or criticism of others. One kind word can fill you with confidence. One careless insult can disturb an entire day. Yet nothing essential about your character changed between those two moments. Only your judgment changed. You accepted another person's assessment as though it possessed the power to define you. This is the beginning of unnecessary slavery. The disciplined mind refuses to hand over its inner government so easily. Before accepting praise, it asks whether the praise concerns something genuinely worthy. Before accepting criticism, it asks whether the criticism is true, false, or partly true. If it is true, correction becomes more valuable than wounded pride. If it is false, there is nothing to fear because false judgments cannot damage a character that remains faithful to virtue. Many people spend years attempting to manage how they appear instead of how they actually live. They become careful actors rather than careful thinkers. Every decision is quietly shaped by the question, "What will others think?" This question slowly replaces a far more important one, "What does reason require of me?" The first question produces anxiety because opinions constantly change. The second produces steadiness because virtue remains the same regardless of who is watching. Examine how often your emotional state depends upon approval. You may work honestly all day, yet feel disappointed because your effort went unnoticed. You may speak truthfully, yet become discouraged because someone misunderstood your intentions. You may act with justice, yet become restless because recognition never arrived. In each case, the disturbance comes from attaching your peace to something that never belonged within your authority. Your responsibility ends with the quality of your own conduct. Whether another person understands your motives, appreciates your effort, or agrees with your choices belongs to their own judgment. Trying to command another person's opinion is like trying to command the direction of the wind. The attempt itself creates frustration because it reaches beyond the limits of your own power. This does not mean ignoring every voice outside yourself. Wisdom requires humility. Sometimes another person's observation reveals a fault you failed to notice. Sometimes correction arrives through uncomfortable words. The disciplined person welcomes truth regardless of its source, but never mistakes every opinion for truth. The difference lies in examination. Reason listens carefully before giving agreement. Begin each morning by establishing a simple intention. Tell yourself that throughout the day you will meet many judgments, both spoken and unspoken. Some will praise you, others will misunderstand you, some will exaggerate your strengths, others will exaggerate your weaknesses. None of these reactions will determine who you are, unless you permit them to replace your own careful judgment. Enter the day resolved to protect the ruling part of your mind before protecting your image. As the day unfolds, practice pausing whenever another person's words provoke a strong emotional reaction. Instead of immediately defending yourself or silently accepting the judgment, ask 3 questions. Is this statement true? Is it useful? Does it concern something within my responsibility? These questions interrupt the habit of emotional surrender and return authority to reason. You will discover that many criticisms concern matters outside your control. Someone may dislike your appearance, your personality, your background, or your success. Another may project their own frustrations onto you. Such opinions reveal more about the speaker than the person being judged. Responding with resentment merely allows another person's confusion to become your own. The same caution applies to praise. Approval feels pleasant, yet it carries its own danger. If you become dependent upon admiration, you will eventually begin sacrificing integrity to preserve it. You may avoid necessary truths because they are unpopular. You may neglect difficult duties because they attract criticism. Gradually, your character becomes shaped by applause rather than by wisdom. A stable life cannot be built upon changing voices. Public opinion rises and falls with fashion, emotion, misunderstanding, and circumstance. Virtue does not. Justice remains just, whether praised or condemned. Honesty remains honest, whether rewarded or ignored. Self-command remains valuable, even when no one notices its quiet discipline. Observe also how often you form careless opinions about others. The mind that suffers from judgment frequently becomes eager to judge. A brief encounter becomes a complete conclusion. A single mistake becomes another person's identity. An unfamiliar situation becomes an excuse for assumption. Guard yourself against this habit. Every unjust opinion weakens your own character before it ever affects another person. Train yourself instead to separate facts from interpretations. You may observe an action without inventing motives. You may recognize behavior without pretending to know another person's entire story. This restraint protects both fairness and humility. It reminds you that your first responsibility is governing your own mind, not becoming the judge of every life around you. During moments of solitude, examine which opinions continue echoing inside your thoughts long after they were spoken. Ask yourself why certain words still possess authority. Did you accept them without examination? Did they awaken an insecurity you have never honestly confronted? Did you allow another person's passing judgment to become your permanent belief? Bringing these hidden influences into awareness begins dissolving their power. Each evening, review the conversations that shaped your day. Notice where you remained steady despite criticism. Notice where praise tempted you toward vanity. Notice where another person's opinion altered your emotional balance unnecessarily. These observations are not reasons for guilt. They are opportunities to strengthen vigilance tomorrow. Over time, you will discover that protecting your mind does not require isolation from others. It requires discipline within yourself. You can listen openly without becoming easily persuaded. You can accept correction without surrendering dignity. You can receive appreciation without becoming dependent upon it. You can disagree without becoming hostile. This balance belongs to a mind trained by reason rather than emotion. The world will always produce opinions. Some will be thoughtful, others will be careless. Some will encourage your growth, others will attempt to distract you from it. You cannot prevent these judgments from appearing, but you remain responsible for deciding which ones deserve entrance into your inner life. Let your own conscience become the place where every opinion is tested. Measure each judgment against honesty, justice, moderation, and courage. Accept whatever helps you become more virtuous. Quietly release whatever merely feeds fear, pride, or resentment. In doing so, you preserve the one freedom no crowd can grant and no critic can remove, the freedom to govern your own mind according to reason. When this discipline becomes part of your daily life, the opinions of others lose their power to shake your foundation. You no longer seek constant approval, nor do you fear constant criticism. You become anchored to something far steadier than reputation. Your confidence grows from faithful conduct rather than public recognition. Your peace rests upon the quality of your own judgments rather than the changing voices surrounding you. That is the freedom of a mind that has learned to protect itself, not by closing itself to truth, but by refusing to surrender its reason to every passing opinion. Number 6. Pain tests true character daily. Pain is not the enemy you think it is. Your first mistake is to meet it as if it has come to destroy you, when in truth it has come to reveal you. Every day, in some form, pain enters the life of every human being. It enters through the body when strength falters. It enters through the mind when plans collapse. It enters through disappointment when hope is denied. It enters through loss when what you valued is taken away. It enters through irritation when people do not behave as you expected. The question is never whether pain will appear. The question is whether you will meet it as a rational being or as a frightened one. Most people do not suffer only from pain. They suffer from the judgment they attach to pain. They tell themselves that discomfort is unbearable, that difficulty is unfair, that delay is an insult, that injury is ruin, that hardship means life has singled them out. These thoughts do not come from reason. They come from a mind that has not yet learned to separate what is happening from what it thinks about what is happening. The event is one thing, the judgment is another. If you fail to divide them, every wound grows larger inside your imagination than it ever was in reality. Pain becomes a teacher the moment you stop asking it to disappear before it has completed its work. A comfortable life may lull you into softness. Pain interrupts that softness. It demands a response. It asks whether your principles are real or merely decorative. It asks whether your composure was only present when life was convenient. It asks whether your courage exists only in speech or also in silence, in strain, in fatigue, in uncertainty, in the moment when your body resists and your duty remains. Pain is not merely something to endure. It is a test of whether your inner life has any structure at all. Do not mistake this for a call to enjoy suffering. Stoic thought does not praise pain as though pain itself were good. Pain is not good. It is an external condition, sometimes unavoidable, often unpleasant, and never to be worshipped. But what you do in the presence of pain is within your control, and that is where your moral worth lives. A person may be in pain and still be just. A person may be in pain and still be honest. A person may be in pain and still be moderate, steadfast, and clear. This is the real question, not whether pain has arrived, but whether virtue has been abandoned because pain arrived. The undisciplined mind reacts before it reflects. The body tenses, the complaint rises, the spirit shrinks inward, and the first thought is, "This should not be happening to me." Yet why should you be exempt from the common conditions of human life? Why should discomfort be a betrayal when it is part of the world you inhabit? Why should suffering be proof that life is unjust, when every life contains trials of some kind? To ask for a life without pain is to ask for a life without the very conditions that train endurance, patience, and self-command. Your daily discipline begins before pain appears. In the calm of the morning, before the day has a chance to strike, remind yourself that the day may include irritation, weakness, interruption, uncertainty, and loss. Do not call this pessimism, call it readiness. A mind that expects difficulty is less likely to be broken by it. It is not surprised into helplessness. It has already made peace with the fact that comfort is never guaranteed. This prepares the soul to answer hardship with firmness rather than shock. When the body aches, do not immediately surrender your judgment to the ache. Observe it. Ask whether the pain requires prudence or panic. Ask what the situation truly demands. Many pains require care, rest, patience, or medical help. Others require only endurance and a refusal to dramatize. But in either case, your mind must remain sovereign. A pain in the body does not have to become chaos in the soul. The body reports sensation. The mind decides what meaning to assign it. Do not confuse the report with the verdict. The same principle applies when pain arrives through insult, rejection, or betrayal. The first wound is often not the final one. The second wound is the story you tell yourself after the event. You say, "I have been diminished." You say, "I cannot bear this." You say, "I need to answer this immediately." Yet none of these statements is required. Another person's cruelty is their own disorder. Your task is not to mirror their disorder. Your task is to remain aligned with reason, even while they have abandoned it. Their behavior belongs to them. Your reaction belongs to you. Never give away your authority just because another person has chosen to act without wisdom. Pain also reveals what you worship. If a minor inconvenience can ruin your day, then comfort has become too important to you. If a small criticism can destabilize your peace, then approval has become too important to you. If a change in plans can make you resentful, then control has become too important to you. Pain strips away these hidden dependencies. It shows where your mind has become enslaved to externals. That revelation is useful if you are willing to learn from it. It is dangerous only if you keep hiding from it. Do not be ashamed of suffering. Be ashamed only of becoming smaller because of it. The body may weaken. Circumstances may tighten. A loss may leave you breathless for a time. None of this is the shame. The shame lies in abandoning your principles, speaking unjustly, treating others with bitterness, surrendering to self-pity, or allowing pain to excuse vice. Pain can coexist with dignity. It can coexist with patience. It can coexist with a clear conscience. It can coexist with gratitude for what remains. This is the higher way. Some hardships cannot be removed. That is a fact you must accept without protest. When removal is impossible, the only honorable response is transformation of the self. If the road is rough, strengthen your stride. If the load is heavy, improve your bearing. If grief is present, grieve without losing your reason. If illness is present, care for the body without surrendering the soul. If disappointment is present, continue acting justly despite the wound. You are not required to be untouched. You are required to be governed. A disciplined person does not ask, "How do I avoid all pain?" He asks, "How do I meet pain without dishonoring myself?" That is the proper question. It preserves both realism and strength. It keeps you from fantasies of invulnerability while also preventing collapse. It reminds you that the purpose of character is not to guarantee ease, but to make you worthy of the life you have been given. Practice this by pausing whenever pain appears and naming it accurately. Do not embellish it. Do not inflate it. Do not reduce it either. Say to yourself, "This is discomfort." Say, "This is loss." Say, "This is fear." Say, "This is disappointment." Naming things plainly separates fact from drama. It restores proportion. The mind that names clearly is less easily overwhelmed because it is seeing rather than imagining. Then ask what remains under your control. You may not control whether the pain exists. You may not control whether the loss can be repaired. You may not control whether the day becomes easier. But you do control whether your response is just, whether your speech is calm, whether your conduct remains worthy, whether your mind clings to complaint or turns toward duty. That is enough. That is always enough. The unjust person becomes more unjust under pressure. The disciplined person becomes more disciplined under pressure. Pain reveals the difference. Each evening, review the day with unflinching honesty. Where did pain meet you, and how did you answer? Did you become more truthful, or did discomfort make you complain? Did you become more patient, or did strain make you sharp? Did you continue doing what was right, or did you use hardship as permission to lower your standards? This evening review is not meant to humiliate you. It is meant to train you. A person who refuses to examine his response to pain will repeat the same weakness tomorrow. A person who examines it can begin correcting it immediately. There is another lesson hidden inside pain. It reminds you that external conditions do not determine your worth. You are not more valuable when comfortable and less valuable when distressed. Worth belongs to the character of your conduct, not the softness of your circumstances. The person lying in hardship may be more excellent than the person sitting in comfort, if the one in hardship remains just while the one in comfort is ruled by appetite. Do not let pain make you think lesser of yourself than is true. Do not let ease make you think greater of yourself than is justified. Judge by virtue alone. If you wish to strengthen yourself, voluntarily meet a little discomfort before life forces greater ones upon you. Practice restraint. Keep a firm posture in small annoyances. Choose simplicity over excess. Accept an inconvenient task without complaint. Walk through an uncomfortable moment without immediately reaching for distraction. These small exercises train the soul to discover its own strength. They teach you that discomfort is not identical with defeat. They show you that a person can remain calm inside difficulty and still be fully human, fully present, fully rational. Pain will continue to visit every life. That fact will not change because you dislike it. But the meaning of pain can change. It can become proof that you are alive, that you are still being shaped, that your principles are still relevant under pressure, that your soul still has opportunities to prove itself. It can remind you that life is not owed to softness, but to excellence. It can call you back from complaint to duty, from fear to clarity, from reaction to choice. Do not waste your suffering. If pain comes, let it instruct you. If loss comes, let it sharpen your attachment to virtue. If the body falters, let the mind remain upright. If the day becomes severe, let your standards become clearer. In this way, pain no longer rules you. It becomes one more condition through which your character is tested and, if you are wise, strengthened. The true measure of your life is not whether you were spared every wound. It is whether, when wounded, you still chose reason, justice, and self-command. Number 7. Virtue outlasts wealth and status. Many people spend their entire lives chasing things that cannot remain with them. They devote their strength to accumulating wealth, protecting status, expanding influence, and earning admiration, believing these achievements will secure lasting peace. Yet every external possession exists under conditions that no human being fully commands. Fortune gives, fortune takes away, and time eventually loosens every hand that tries to hold what was never meant to be permanent. If your peace depends upon what fortune may remove, then your peace has never truly belonged to you. Pause for a moment and ask yourself a simple question. If everything that others could see about your life disappeared tomorrow, what would remain? If your position changed, if your possessions were reduced, if recognition faded into silence, would you still know who you are? This question reaches beneath appearances. It asks whether your identity has been built upon character or upon circumstance. One foundation remains firm through change. The other begins to crumble the moment events refuse to cooperate. The disciplined life begins by recognizing that external advantages are neither good nor evil in themselves. Wealth may be used wisely or foolishly. Reputation may encourage service or inflate pride. Authority may strengthen justice or corrupt judgment. These things possess no moral value until they are directed by character. It is not what you possess that determines the quality of your life. It is the quality of the mind directing whatever you possess. Many people quietly reverse this order. They imagine that obtaining more will automatically make them better. They promise themselves that generosity will come after greater success, that honesty will become easier after security arrives, that moderation can wait until abundance is achieved. Yet character postponed is usually character abandoned. The habits you practice while possessing little become the habits you carry while possessing much. Fortune may enlarge your opportunities, but it rarely transforms your principles. Look honestly at the moments when you have admired another person. Was your deepest respect created by their possessions, or by the way they carried themselves through difficulty? The memory that endures is rarely one of luxury. It is often one of integrity. It is the individual who remained truthful when deception offered advantage. It is the one who acted fairly despite unfair treatment. It is the one who accepted responsibility instead of searching for excuses. These qualities remain impressive because they do not depend upon favorable circumstances. They arise from disciplined judgment. The world often measures success by visible achievements because they are easy to count. Character cannot be displayed in a ledger or placed upon a pedestal. It is revealed quietly through repeated choices that few people notice. A patient response during disagreement. Honest work completed without praise. A promise kept when breaking it would be convenient. A calm decision made while emotions demand haste. These actions rarely attract applause, yet they shape the only possession that remains fully your own. There is danger in allowing wealth to become the measure of worth. Once money becomes your standard, every comparison invites either pride or envy. You begin evaluating yourself through numbers rather than principles. Satisfaction becomes temporary because someone will always possess more. Desire grows faster than gratitude, and the mind becomes restless even while surrounded by abundance. The pursuit itself begins governing you. Status creates a similar trap. The wish to be admired can quietly replace the wish to become honorable. You start arranging your life around appearances instead of truth. Decisions are no longer guided by justice but by public approval. Words become carefully selected to protect reputation rather than express honesty. Gradually you lose something far more valuable than popularity. You lose the freedom to act according to reason alone. True freedom appears when your conscience becomes a higher authority than public opinion. If your conduct remains faithful to wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation, then praise adds nothing essential, and criticism removes nothing essential. Others may celebrate your actions or misunderstand them completely. Neither reaction changes the moral quality of your choices. Your task is not to command another person's judgment. Your task is to remain worthy regardless of how that judgment changes. Begin every morning by reminding yourself what truly deserves your attention. Before considering your schedule, your income, or your ambitions, ask what kind of person you intend to become today. Resolve to speak truthfully even when honesty costs comfort. Resolve to act fairly even when fairness offers no immediate reward. Resolve to remain moderate when excess invites you. Resolve to meet uncertainty with courage rather than complaint. By setting your priorities before the day begins, you prevent external success from replacing internal excellence. Throughout the day, examine your motives as carefully as your actions. Two people may perform the same deed while pursuing entirely different purposes. One gives generously to be admired, Another gives because justice requires it. One works diligently to surpass others. Another works diligently because careful effort reflects self-respect. Outward appearances may look identical, yet the condition of the soul differs completely. Reason asks not only what you are doing, but why you are doing it. Whenever success arrives, receive it with gratitude but not dependence. Remember that favorable circumstances are temporary guests rather than permanent residents. Enjoy them without believing they define you. A person who clings tightly to prosperity begins fearing its departure. Fear then replaces contentment. By appreciating what you have, while accepting that it may one day change, you preserve both gratitude and inner stability. Likewise, if fortune withdraws its gifts, refuse to believe that your worth has departed with them. External losses reveal whether you have invested your identity wisely. If your character remains intact, the most valuable part of your life remains untouched. You still possess the ability to think clearly, choose justly, speak honestly, and act courageously. These capacities cannot be purchased, and they cannot be confiscated by changing circumstances. Practice voluntary simplicity from time to time. Choose moments where convenience is set aside deliberately. Complete ordinary tasks without seeking recognition. Spend time reflecting instead of consuming constant entertainment. Wear humility comfortably. These exercises remind the mind that fulfillment does not depend upon luxury. They strengthen your independence from unnecessary comforts and reduce the fear of losing them. Your relationships also reveal whether you value virtue above status. Treat every person with justice regardless of their position. Do not flatter those with influence while neglecting those who cannot benefit you. The disciplined person recognizes that every human being deserves fairness because fairness reflects the character of the one giving it, not the status of the one receiving it. Guard yourself against hidden pride. Success sometimes persuades people that they deserve special treatment or superior respect. Yet genuine excellence creates humility rather than arrogance. The more clearly you understand your own imperfections, the less eager you become to elevate yourself above others. Humility protects wisdom because it leaves the mind open to correction. At the close of each day, conduct an honest examination. Ask yourself whether you valued appearances more than principles. Did you compromise truth for advantage? Did you allow recognition to influence decisions that should have been guided only by justice? Did you remain faithful to your standards when no one was watching? These questions direct attention toward the condition of your character rather than the outcome of your efforts. Over time, you will notice a profound change. External success will still be welcomed, but it will no longer govern your emotional balance. Prosperity becomes an opportunity to practice generosity rather than a reason for pride. Influence becomes a responsibility rather than a personal trophy. Achievement becomes a tool for service rather than a measure of identity. One day, every possession will pass into different hands. Every title will belong to someone else. Every public achievement will gradually fade from memory. Time performs this work without exception, yet the quality of the life you lived remains beyond those changing circumstances. A person remembered for integrity leaves behind something no inheritance can equal. Even when names are forgotten, virtue has already fulfilled its purpose by shaping a life worthy of having been lived. Let your greatest ambition become the cultivation of character. Let honesty outweigh convenience. Let justice outweigh personal advantage. Let moderation outweigh excess. Let courage outweigh fear. When these become the standards by which you judge yourself, wealth becomes useful without becoming your master. Status becomes temporary without becoming your identity, and success becomes welcome without becoming your purpose. Build your life upon what no change in fortune can erase. Build it upon the disciplined use of reason, the steady practice of virtue, and the unwavering commitment to live honorably in every circumstance. Everything else belongs to the shifting currents of the world. Character alone remains your truest possession, and it is the only treasure that grows more valuable each time you choose it over everything that can be lost. Number 8. Silence reveals inner strength always. There is a form of strength that rarely announces itself. It does not demand attention, compete for the final word, or rush to defend every misunderstanding. It remains composed while others become agitated. It listens when others interrupt. It observes before judging. It speaks only when speech serves wisdom better than silence. This strength cannot be measured by volume or by victory in argument. It is measured by mastery over oneself. Many people mistake constant expression for confidence. They believe every criticism deserves an immediate answer, every disagreement requires a response, and every accusation must be challenged. Yet a mind that feels compelled to answer everything has quietly surrendered its peace to every passing opinion. The person who cannot remain silent has become dependent upon being understood, approved, or justified. Such dependence places the condition of the soul into the hands of others. Silence is not weakness. Silence becomes weakness only when it is born from fear. But when silence is chosen deliberately through reason, it becomes one of the clearest signs of inner discipline. It reveals that your actions are no longer governed by impulse. You have learned that not every thought deserves to become speech, and not every emotion deserves immediate expression. Look honestly at the moments when you regret your words. They rarely come after careful reflection. They usually follow anger, pride, impatience, or wounded vanity. In those moments, speech was not serving reason, it was serving emotion. The tongue simply gave form to thoughts that should have been examined before they were released. Every unnecessary argument begins with the assumption that changing another person's opinion is your responsibility. Yet another mind remains outside your authority. You may present truth clearly and respectfully, but you cannot command acceptance. Once you understand this, much of the urgency to argue begins to disappear. Your duty is to speak honestly when wisdom requires it. The outcome belongs elsewhere. Notice how often conversations become contests rather than opportunities for understanding. Instead of listening, people prepare their next reply. Instead of seeking clarity, they seek victory. Instead of correcting themselves, they search for weaknesses in others. This habit produces noise, but rarely produces wisdom. A disciplined mind refuses to participate in this competition because its purpose is not to appear superior. Its purpose is to remain aligned with truth. Before speaking, pause long enough to examine the motive behind your words. Ask yourself whether you are speaking to benefit another person or to satisfy your own pride. Are you offering guidance or are you seeking admiration? Are you correcting an error or defending your image? Are your words necessary or do they simply relieve temporary emotion? This brief examination protects both your speech and your character. Morning discipline should include more than planning the day's tasks. It should include preparing your speech. Tell yourself that throughout the day you will encounter misunderstandings, careless remarks, unfair criticism, and moments when silence will feel difficult. Resolve in advance that your words will remain governed by reason rather than reaction. This preparation makes self-command available before emotion has an opportunity to take control. As the day unfolds, practice allowing brief moments of silence before answering difficult situations. If someone speaks harshly, resist the temptation to respond immediately. Let the first wave of emotion settle. During that pause, ask what justice requires, what honesty requires, and what moderation requires. Very often you will discover that the wisest response is calmer, shorter, and more thoughtful than your first impulse intended. Silence also teaches you about yourself. When external noise fades, the conversation inside your own mind becomes easier to hear. You begin noticing how frequently your thoughts race toward judgment, comparison, resentment, or fear. These patterns often remain hidden because constant distraction prevents honest observation. Solitude removes those distractions. What first appears uncomfortable gradually becomes one of your greatest teachers. Many people avoid quiet because they fear meeting themselves without interruption. Endless entertainment, constant conversation, and continual activity become ways of escaping self-examination. Yet the unexamined mind cannot become a disciplined mind. Only by observing your own thoughts can you begin correcting them. Only by recognizing habitual judgments can you decide whether they deserve your agreement. Set aside time each day when no voice but your own conscience is present. Sit without seeking distraction. Allow your thoughts to appear naturally. Do not chase them and do not flee from them. Simply observe where your attention repeatedly goes, which worries return again and again, which resentments continue asking for attention, which desires dominate your thinking. These observations reveal where your inner work must begin. Silence also protects fairness. Many conflicts grow larger because words are spoken before understanding has been established. A patient listener often discovers information that completely changes the situation. What first appeared as disrespect may reveal exhaustion. What seemed like indifference may reveal fear. What looked like hostility may conceal misunderstanding. Listening prevents unnecessary injustice because it delays judgment until sufficient understanding exists. The disciplined person understands that words cannot easily be recalled once spoken. An impulsive sentence may damage trust built over many years. A careless accusation may remain in another person's memory long after anger has disappeared. Because speech carries lasting consequences, it deserves careful governance. Speaking less often, but with greater intention, strengthens both credibility and character. There is another danger hidden within excessive speech. The more eagerly you explain yourself, the more dependent you become upon external validation. You begin believing that peace requires everyone to understand your motives, yet complete understanding is never guaranteed. Some people will judge you unfairly regardless of your explanations. Others will misunderstand even your clearest words. If your peace depends upon universal agreement, peace will remain forever beyond your reach. Instead, let your conduct become your strongest explanation. Honest actions speak with a consistency that arguments rarely achieve. Continue fulfilling your responsibilities. Continue acting justly. Continue treating others with fairness even when they misunderstand you. Character expressed repeatedly becomes more convincing than endless self-defense. Throughout the day, notice how often silence creates opportunities that constant speech would have destroyed. By listening carefully, you learn more than by interrupting. By observing patiently, you recognize details others overlook. By withholding unnecessary opinion, you preserve energy for decisions that truly matter. Silence is not the absence of activity, it is the deliberate protection of attention. This discipline extends beyond conversations with others. It also concerns the constant stream of opinions within your own mind. Many thoughts arise automatically. Some predict failure, others exaggerate danger. Some replay old injuries, others invent future fears. You are not required to believe every thought merely because it appears. Treat your own inner dialogue with the same careful examination you would apply to another person's advice. Each evening, review not only what you said but also what you chose not to say. Ask yourself whether your silence arose from wisdom or from fear. Did you remain quiet because patience served justice, or because courage was absent? Did you speak only when your words improved the situation? Did your conversations leave others with greater clarity, or merely greater noise? honest reflection gradually refines both speech and restraint. As this practice continues, something remarkable begins to change. You stop feeling compelled to answer every criticism. You no longer seek constant opportunities to display knowledge. You become increasingly comfortable allowing others to underestimate you, knowing that your character does not require public confirmation. This quiet confidence cannot be manufactured through appearances. It grows naturally from repeated acts of self-command. The world often rewards loud voices with immediate attention, but attention is not the same as wisdom. A person may speak continuously while understanding very little. Another may speak rarely, yet each sentence carries weight because it has first been tested by reason. Choose to become the second kind of person. Let your words be few enough that they retain their value. When silence is guided by wisdom, it creates space for careful judgment, patient listening, honest reflection, and measured action. It prevents emotion from governing speech and allows reason to guide every response. It protects relationships from unnecessary conflict and protects your own mind from needless agitation. The greatest victory is not winning an argument, it is preserving your character while disagreement exists. The greatest achievement is not having the final word. It is ensuring that every word you choose reflects justice, moderation, honesty, and self-command. A disciplined mind has no need to fill every silence. It understands that inner strength is revealed not by how much it can say, but by how completely it governs itself before saying anything at all. Number 9. Death gives life its meaning. Every day begins with an assumption that tomorrow will arrive. You rise, make plans, postpone difficult conversations, delay necessary changes, and promise yourself that there will be another opportunity. This quiet assumption governs far more of your life than you realize. It whispers that time is abundant, that character can be strengthened later, that forgiveness can wait, that courage can be postponed, that wisdom may be pursued after comfort has been secured. Yet no human being has ever been promised another sunrise. The greatest mistake is not that life ends. The greatest mistake is living as though the end is too distant to matter today. Death is often treated as an unwelcome subject, something to avoid mentioning, something that belongs only to the old, the sick, or the unfortunate. But avoiding the thought does not weaken its certainty, it only weakens your preparation. The disciplined mind does not dwell upon mortality to become fearful, it reflects upon mortality to become awake. When you remember that your days are limited, every hour gains weight, every decision acquires greater significance, every act of kindness, every honest word, every opportunity to practice virtue becomes too valuable to waste. Ask yourself how many hours have disappeared while your attention was captured by matters that never deserved such devotion. Think of the arguments prolonged by pride, the anxieties fueled by imagined futures, the resentment carried long after the event had passed, the endless pursuit of approval from people whose opinions could never define your character. Now imagine standing at the edge of your final day. Which of these concerns would still appear important? Most would dissolve immediately. They possess power only because you imagine unlimited time. The awareness of death is not meant to make life smaller. It is meant to free life from illusion. It reminds you that delay is one of the greatest enemies of a disciplined soul. Every postponed act of justice remains an opportunity neglected. Every delayed apology leaves unnecessary distance between human beings. Every moment spent waiting to become the person you know you should be is a moment surrendered to habit instead of reason. Many people fear death because they have not yet learned how to live. They seek security in possessions, titles, and recognition, believing these things provide permanence. Yet everything outside your character remains vulnerable to change. Wealth can disappear, status can fade, the body grows older, circumstances shift without permission. If your identity rests upon these changing conditions, uncertainty becomes a constant companion. But if your identity rests upon the steady practice of wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation, then nothing essential can be taken from you while you remain capable of choosing your conduct. This understanding changes the way you approach ordinary days. You no longer ask whether today will be comfortable. You ask whether today will be honorable. You stop measuring success by the number of pleasant experiences collected and begin measuring it by the quality of your decisions. A single day lived with integrity possesses greater value than many years spent drifting without purpose. Each morning offers an opportunity to begin again. Before your attention is captured by responsibilities and distractions, remind yourself that this day is not guaranteed to repeat. Let this thought sharpen your priorities instead of darkening your spirit. Resolve to leave nothing important undone because of laziness, fear, or pride. Speak truthfully while you have the chance. Perform your duties carefully while strength remains. Treat others fairly while they are still present in your life. These actions require no extraordinary circumstances. They require only the willingness to stop postponing what reason already knows is right. You will discover that remembering mortality changes the way you respond to conflict. Petty disagreements lose much of their attraction. The desire to win every argument weakens. The need to defend your image begins to fade. You realize that time spent feeding resentment is time permanently removed from a life that cannot be extended through anger. Forgiveness does not always mean forgetting another person's actions. It means refusing to waste your limited days carrying unnecessary bitterness. This awareness also transforms your relationship with fear. Many fears derive their strength from imagined futures that never arrive. You hesitate to act because you worry about embarrassment, rejection, failure, or criticism. Yet when measured against the certainty that life itself is finite, these fears become smaller than they first appeared. The opportunity to act with courage now outweighs the possibility of temporary discomfort. There is a valuable practice you can begin today. At the close of every evening, ask yourself whether this day reflected the person you intend to become. If today had been your final day, would you be satisfied with the way you spoke, worked, listened, and treated those around you? This question is not meant to produce regret but clarity. It directs attention away from achievements you cannot control and toward the character you can always improve. Notice how often your thoughts wander toward a future where everything will finally be in order. You tell yourself that peace will arrive after one more accomplishment, one more purchase, one more promotion, one more period of comfort. Yet peace postponed remains peace denied. The disciplined person understands that tranquility is cultivated through present choices rather than future circumstances. The right time to practice virtue has always been now. Mortality also teaches gratitude, not the shallow gratitude that appears only during pleasant moments, but the deeper gratitude that recognizes the privilege of another opportunity to act well. A simple conversation becomes precious because it cannot be repeated forever. Honest work becomes meaningful because the chance to contribute is temporary. Even ordinary moments gain significance when viewed through the understanding that they are limited. Do not allow the certainty of death to make you withdraw from life. Let it encourage fuller participation in what truly matters. Fulfill your responsibilities without complaint. Care for others without expecting perfect return. Continue learning while your mind remains capable of growth. Continue correcting your own faults before searching for those of others. These are not dramatic achievements, yet they build a life that remains worthy regardless of its length. Another daily discipline is to distinguish between urgency and importance. Much of what demands your immediate attention contributes very little to the quality of your character. Endless distractions consume hours while genuine self-examination is postponed. Before beginning each day, Identify one action that strengthens wisdom, justice, courage, or moderation. Complete it before allowing less important matters to occupy your attention. In doing so, you ensure that every day contains at least one deliberate investment in the person you are becoming. When disappointment visits your life, remember that your remaining time deserves better than endless complaint. Difficult circumstances should invite thoughtful action rather than habitual resentment. Ask yourself what this challenge requires from your character. Does it call for patience, courage, honesty, or restraint? By focusing upon your own responsibility, even adversity becomes material for inner growth rather than an excuse for despair. You will also find greater freedom from comparison. The success of another person no longer threatens you when you understand that every life moves toward the same conclusion. Another person's wealth cannot lengthen your days or shorten theirs. Another person's recognition cannot increase your capacity for virtue. The only meaningful comparison is between the person you were yesterday and the person you are becoming today. As the habit of remembering mortality deepens, your standards become simpler and stronger. You speak less carelessly because words cannot be retrieved. You waste less time on resentment because bitterness cannot create additional days. You become slower to judge and quicker to examine your own conduct. Your attention naturally returns to what remains permanently within your authority, your judgments, your choices, and your character. The world will continue changing long after every individual life has ended. This realization is not a reason for hopelessness. It is a reason for humility. You do not control history. You do not command fortune. You do not determine how long your journey will last. But within the time entrusted to you, however long or short it may be, you retain the ability to live honorably. Let each sunrise remind you that another opportunity has been given, not promised. Let each sunset invite honest examination rather than regret. Do not measure your life by how long it continues, but by how faithfully you govern yourself while it does. When the awareness of death becomes a daily companion instead of a hidden fear, life itself becomes clearer. Every moment asks the same enduring question, not how much time remains, but what kind of person will you choose to be with the time that is here now. Number 10. Live wisely before time ends. Time does not announce when it is running out. It simply runs, quietly, without warning, without permission, and most people only realize its movement when they look back and notice how much has already been taken from them, not stolen, not lost in a dramatic moment, but slowly exchanged for distraction, hesitation, avoidance, and delay. A life is not destroyed in a single act. It is weakened in countless small postponements where wisdom was known but not followed. To live wisely before time ends is not a poetic idea. It is a practical demand placed on every thinking mind, because you are always already inside limited time. There is no future moment where limitation begins. It has already begun. Every decision you make today is being taken from a finite supply that will never be replenished. The undisciplined mind behaves as if this truth is optional. The disciplined mind treats it as the foundation of all conduct. You do not suffer primarily because life is short. You suffer because you behave as if it is not. You delay honesty because you assume there will be another opportunity to speak truth. You delay discipline because you assume strength can be built later without cost. You delay reconciliation because you assume relationships remain untouched by neglect. This assumption is the hidden cause of much regret. It convinces you that the present moment is negotiable. Examine how often your attention is consumed by things that will not matter when your final perspective arrives. You argue over recognition that fades. You compare yourself over achievements that lose meaning with time. You carry resentment over events that already completed their existence in the past. These reactions feel important only because attention gives them weight. Remove attention, and they shrink to their proper size. The disciplined mind learns to withdraw attention from what is not worthy of it. Living wisely begins with correcting your judgment before it becomes action. The first impression that arises in your mind is not always trustworthy. It is shaped by habit, fear, pride, and desire. If you accept it immediately, you live as a reaction to impulses rather than as a ruler of your own conduct. Before agreeing with any impulse, pause long enough to ask whether it aligns with reason, not emotion, not habit, reason. Each morning should begin with a clear acknowledgement. This day is not guaranteed to repeat. This does not create anxiety when understood correctly. It creates precision. You stop inflating trivial matters into urgent matters. You stop treating distractions as obligations. You stop giving equal importance to everything that demands your attention. When time is understood as limited, selection becomes necessary. Not everything deserves your life force. The mind that forgets limitation wastes itself in repetition. It revisits the same complaints, the same fantasies, the same fears, as if repetition could change reality. But repetition without action is only mental exhaustion. The disciplined mind interrupts this cycle by returning attention to what can be shaped: judgment, choice, and behavior. These alone remain fully under your authority. Everything else is conditional. When you face a difficult situation, your first question is often misdirected. You ask, "How do I escape this quickly?" or "Why is this happening to me?" These questions assume that life must justify itself before you respond wisely. A better question is simpler. What is required of me now, given that this is the situation? This question removes resistance and replaces it with responsibility. It shifts focus from complaint to action. Living wisely also means refusing to postpone integrity. There is a subtle form of self-deception where a person knows what is right, but waits for better conditions before acting. Better conditions rarely arrive in the way imagined. Time does not improve your character through waiting. It reveals your character through action. Each moment that passes while you delay doing what you already understand to be right is a moment where discipline weakens. You are not asked to control the entire structure of your life at once. You are asked to govern the next decision correctly, then the one after that. Wisdom is not a distant achievement. It is a continuous application of reason in small, immediate situations. The moment you abandon this, life becomes something that happens to you rather than something you actively shape. Pay attention to how much energy is lost through unnecessary mental noise. You rehearse conversations that have not happened. You predict outcomes that may never occur. You revisit old disappointments as if revisiting them could change them. This is not reflection. This is fragmentation of attention. A life scattered in thought becomes weak in action. A life focused becomes effective. To return to clarity, you must learn to separate what belongs to you from what does not. What belongs to you is your judgment, your intention, your choice, your response. What does not belong to you is the outcome, the opinion of others, the stability of circumstances, and the behavior of the world. Confusing these categories is the source of unnecessary suffering. Living wisely requires constant separation between them. When you fail, do not waste time constructing narratives that protect your ego. Instead, examine the decision that led to the outcome and correct it. When you succeed, do not inflate your importance beyond reason. Instead, recognize that external factors contributed beyond your control. Both failure and success become useful only when stripped of distortion. Otherwise, they strengthen illusion rather than understanding. Time gives every action its true weight. A small act of honesty repeated daily becomes more powerful than large intentions never acted upon. A small act of avoidance repeated daily becomes more destructive than occasional mistakes. Life is shaped not by isolated moments, but by patterns of response repeated across time. Wisdom therefore requires attention to repetition, not just isolated decisions. There is a quiet urgency in understanding that you cannot rehearse life indefinitely. You are always already in the performance. There is no waiting room where character is prepared separately from action. You become what you repeatedly choose in real conditions, not in imagined ones. This is why reflection without practice leads nowhere. Only applied judgment changes who you are. As the day unfolds, observe how often you drift away from what is essential. Notice when attention shifts from responsibility to distraction. Notice when you choose comfort over correctness. Notice when emotion begins to speak louder than reason. These moments are not failures in themselves. They are signals. They show where discipline must be strengthened. Each evening, examine your use of time without self-deception. Not to condemn yourself, but to clarify yourself. Ask where attention was wasted, where judgment was weak, where action was avoided, where impulse replaced reason. Then release the day without carrying its disorder into the next. The purpose of reflection is correction, not punishment. To live wisely before time ends is to remove unnecessary distance between understanding and action. You already know more than you apply. The gap is not intellectual, it is behavioral. Wisdom is not missing, it is delayed. And delay, repeated often enough, becomes the quiet erosion of a life that could have been more deliberate. There is no future moment where discipline becomes easier without cost. There is only the present moment where discipline is chosen or ignored. Every time you act in alignment with reason instead of impulse, you reclaim a fragment of your life from waste. Every time you delay that choice, you surrender it again. A wise life is not one free of difficulty. It is one where difficulty is met without confusion. Time will continue its movement regardless of your readiness. The only variable within your control is whether you meet it with clarity or with delay. And in the end, it is not the length of time that defines a life, but the degree to which it was used in accordance with reason while it was available.